So hello, and today I'm on the Labour Party website. Um, it's effectively about pensioner betrayal. Um, uh, to have a blanket proposition where effectively you're going to get something like between 1.6 and 2.6 people having to calculate whether they heat or eat. The problem with that from a simple standpoint is that you're not going to know which days are going to be incredibly cold or incredibly warm. But unfortunately, if you don't heat your house every day, you can get damp, which leads to mold, which leads to lots of other expensive problems. Now, the other thing is there's the unintended consequences. You're probably going to see a massive uptick, probably 20–30% of pensioners trying to get into hospital, either because they problems, cold and old age actually bring on issues, probably before, during, and after winter time. So we're going to have a massive number of shortages of beds, which effectively might just make that rather than they're saving money, they're actually losing money. Now, what there probably needs to be is a massive overhaul in the relevant software that they use. So we could have an arbitrary sort of 5,000 ceiling above what they're saying, and anybody above that, they've got all of the relevant returns. They know what the vast majority of pensioners are being paid on the simplistic tax side, and on the more sort of complex tax side, they'll probably get the relevant tax returns. So it's probably a simple thing of saying, well, those people over the age or of over retirement age, do a simple query and get a list of all of those individuals that don't meet the mark by a long way, and actually mark those forevermore because they are well over the tax bracket. The whole principle of saying that oh, you're going to get money sort of at the end of the year, next tax year. You need the money now. You need to feed the meter. Whitehall, they pay as you go. So effectively, they pay a certain amount in direct debit, and then effectively all of the amount gets sort of calculated in the summer, and then they say you need to pay more on your direct debit or less on your direct debit. The majority of pensioners are like a lot of people on low income. They get a particular card which costs them 20, 30, 50 pounds, and then they slot it into their meter. So then I don't think you can run your gas central heating without electricity. And I think what a lot of the old people or retired people do is that they change everything to electricity. So they have electric fires, so they don't have a standing order where you're using not a great deal of gas. I mean, gas is going to be phased out at some point. So it's just going to be, you know, saving with one hand, and we'll see in the news that we'll be spending twice as much on the other hand, which will put pressure on the NHS when they're trying to get through the backlog, where they're dealing with flu and other ailments that happen at the end of the year. So I'd like you to listen to what Labour have said. So Labour will turn the page on Tory chaos with economic security and political stability. Well, not sure about the chaos in general, because it seems like a lot of chaos already. So a Labour government will protect the triple lock on pensions and review the current state of the pensions retirement savings landscape to check if the current framework can deliver sustainable retirement incomes for people. Well, that's good, but you cannot say, oh, you're going to get the money in a year or two. You've got to pay it now for your energy. You can't go into arrears. You don't have something for most pensioners on low income like a direct debit. So that's got to be rethought. We will also give the pensions regulator new powers to intervene where schemes fail to offer sufficient value for their members. So effectively, it's in the wrong section. These are people who are saving for retirement. Liz Kendall, Labour Shadow Pension Secretary, has said retirement should be a time we all look forward to, but more pensioners than ever are renting into retirement. Their children returning home because they're locked out of the housing market, and soaring childcare costs mean the pensioners are taking on more responsibilities they weren't expecting. Well, not always having a home is the answer. You know, there are a lot of information online in regard to the benefits of having a mortgage and the benefits of renting. The only thing is that when you have a mortgage, you're regimented about paying, because then they will take the property off you. If you are regimented and you're paying your rent, you have to pay a portion of that into the stock market in indexes, which over time will compound, and you would probably have a better nest egg than having a property which you have to pay a lot of money on. There's all the repairs and the painting and whatnot. If you have a mindset that you're renting, you're going to have a lot less stuff, which will be cheaper to move to your property. And then it'll also make it easier to actually move, either for a new or better outlook, or to find better employment or better schooling. So you may want to be close to your children when they're at university, so you can actually move and rent as well, because a lot of jobs, you know, you need to commute for an hour or two, and when you sum that all up, of costing probably 6 or 10 grand a year all in and lost time, it'll be better if you had rented. So I would advise you to actually look at the the topics online, whether it's better to rent and the pros and cons, or whether it is better to get a mortgage and the pros and cons. So it's not for everybody. Somebody wants that reliability, but on the other hand, you can make more money in the long term, as well as, changing the boiler, needed to fix this, needed to fix that. It's the responsibility of the owner if you're renting. So those costs don't come out of your pocket. If you want a new scenery, you can just say, well, I'm going to move to this other place. I suppose it has that mindset that you need to be as minimalist as possible. Maybe renting or just getting secondhand furniture rather than buying brand new. The other thing is that a mortgage isn't right for everybody because, people have seen that mortgages have been close to zero or around 2%. I mean, we've had an average mortgage rate over the past 500 or 600 years of about 5.75% to 6%. So that's fairly on the high side. So, even taking into account the market corrections and so forth, if you just be diligent and stick it in some sort of tracker, maybe put it in maybe a small amount into funds that will actually give you a different return. And over the course of sort of 40 years, you'd probably get a better nest egg and you get flexibility of moving around. Because, of course, once you bought your bricks and mortar, you're the one that are going to have to deal with any issues with that property. You're going to have to update it, the kitchen and the bathrooms and the painting and the flooring and a new boiler, fixing all the electrics and bringing that all up to date. So looking at how Labour will support pensioners, I think it needs a radical change to a lot of these systems. It needs to be completely rewritten, the relevant software, because there's just no cohesive manner. I mean, if you wanted to do this in a normal way, you would say, select staff from pensioners who have more than X coming in to their house. So you'd have to work out, how many people are living in that property and determine either on an individual basis or a house basis. And then you can say, well, we'll pay it out to these people and we won't pay it out to these people. So what we're going to have is we're going to have a draw on the NHS, we're going to have a draw on the local authority of the people that are just between the gaps. So you're going to have somebody which is maybe 500 or 1,000 over the gap. We're probably going to get food inflation into the end of the year. They'll probably miscalculate the fuel. And of course, when you're older, you need to have the heating on more because when you're sick, it affects you more. So you've got one side where you've got people that are supported in our environment, in the state, and the other people where they have little voice aren't supported. So I think they should rescind this until they get proper changes in the software, so they can actually mark and say, these people don't get it, but these people do. And maybe it should be more of a simplistic thing. Maybe it should be a simpler thing where they just put it straight on your tax allowance. So you add it straight to your tax allowance. If you earn more than a certain amount, then it's just eradicated. So those people that don't earn those sort of amounts, they will get that extra benefit, and those people that don't won't. So that's probably a simple workaround. I hope Keir Starmer will read this, because I think personally the savings will be eradicated by the cost of the NHS, the police, the ambulances, the whole principle of people not actually purchasing the relevant food or going out or having that relevant celebration, which will just impact. You've got, let's say, 3 million pensioners that would be affected in some manner. So the whole principle of having maybe a monthly Sunday lunch or a Friday lunch, that's out of the question for a lot of these. And you'd have that knock-on effect that this will affect the local and wider community, because there's the inevitable idea that people will just cut back, because people don't know where their money will need to go, because the problem is that you state one inflation rate, but every different type of individual and couple have their own inflation rate. You might have a couple who are married with no children, a couple married with children. You might have a single person with children. You might have two people retired. You've got one person working. All of these people and up and down the country will have different inflation rates. And that is another issue. Do you actually dole out the money depending on where you live? So in the north, it's a lot cooler than it is in certain areas of the south. So do you then give more money when it's colder? Because then, of course, if it's -3, you've got to use more energy than if it's sort of -1. So I think this needs a radical overhaul, and it needs it soon, because you're just robbing one set of individuals. And I think that any savings will be eradicated, and you'll probably have a lot more expenses to actually tidy up the issue now and going forward. Thank you very much for your time. Please support my channel by subscribing and commenting. And also, in the show notes, I've got a donation link. So if you could donate, if you found that interesting. And also, I'm looking for people to sponsor this and other shows that I'm doing. So all this information will be in the show notes. Thank you very much, and have a good day. Thank you. Bye.